Alright, you win. You're gonna get some of my other criticisms of Game of Thrones aside from that one particular scene in the final episode that really pissed me off and I ranted about in my previous video. So, by the time Season 8 came out, I'd already lost a lot of interest because I watched Seasons 1 through 7 as a marathon, and then I had to wait 2 whole years until Season 8 came out. So naturally, because of the passage of time, I lost a lot of interest, and also because of my experience with anime and a lot of anime having to deviate from the source material and coming up with bad endings, I knew that Game of Thrones was going to have a bad Season 8, but, I wasn't really that invested in it. Season 1 through 7, I largely liked, but I do have a lot of criticisms, and I'm just going to focus on a few right now because I'm sure that anything I'm going to say has already been said by someone else. I imagine the show has been really heavily discussed and analyzed by commentators in the West, but you know what? Big deal. These are just my opinions because you want to know particularly what I think, even though they might not be interesting or unique. Here we go. First of all, the two things that basically sold me on this show were the allegations that this show would have a lot of sex and that anyone could die at any time. These were gross exaggerations in my opinion. First of all, the sex, alright? The first episode had a lot. No episode after that came even close. Yeah, there were some sex scenes here and there, but largely not that much. And it's not that big of a deal, right? This is 2019. You can get sex anytime on the internet in high definition from people who are much more attractive than the people on this TV show. But still, I was promised sex. I'm disappointed when I don't get what I'm promised. That's all. And yeah, I can blame the fans on this one. It's not necessarily the show saying, oh, we have so much sex, watch our show. It's the fans saying this. It's word of mouth saying this. So maybe I'm not going to blame the show all that much, but still, they set the bar kind of high with the first episode. They went along with the narrative in the first episode, and everything after that, not so interesting. That's all. The other thing, anyone can die at any time. I was told this by several people. If by at any time you mean towards the end of a season, sure, anyone can die at any time as the season is coming to a close. That is good storytelling. You want to save the climactic part of the season for the end of the season. I understand that, but that is not anyone can die at any time. I would have been a lot more interested in the show from this particular angle, at least, if more people were dying off in episodes 2 through 4 of seasons 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what really makes the show interesting. When Akame Ga Kill came out, that's what I was really interested in. People were just dying off left and right. People were pretty much guaranteed to die in any given battle. That was really cool. Some people would say, oh, that's kind of boring. That's just edgy. It's a gimmick. But still, I appreciate that because in battle, people die. That's how it works. I don't like battles where people just run into each other, then end up in a draw and run away. It's not so interesting when that happens. So I was hoping to get more out of this show. I wasn't disappointed, but still, not as good as it could have been. Not as good as it was advertised. That's the big problem. Okay. Other criticism of the show. So, Jon Snow. The first time he goes north of the wall, he gets captured by the wildlings, and he's able to talk his way into being one of their buddies. Never bought that, not for a second. I don't think it was executed well. I assume this was a problem with the execution. I'm assuming that in the source material, this was better described and better presented. But, later on in the show, when Jon Snow has the opportunity to prove himself to the wildlings, yeah, at that point I can see why they bought into him being one of their allies. But that first time he goes north of the wall, just saying, oh, I'm descended from the same people as you, didn't buy that for a second. Why did they accept him? Why did they trust him? That was stupid. That was really stupid. And I'm assuming that was a problem in the books too, but maybe it was just presented a little bit better. Okay, next up, Tyrion's prostitute girlfriend. She was a really interesting character when she first burst onto the scene. I was expecting a lot from her, and the way they kind of just ended her character with, her just betraying Tyrion for no good reason, then cheating on him, and then getting killed, that was really, really dull for me. I don't know if this was canon or not. One of the things that comes with having seen the first 7 seasons as a marathon is that I don't know what's canon and what wasn't because I wasn't reading anyone's commentary. But I was really expecting this character to be a lot more interesting and a lot more influential, and in this case, they just kind of ended off her character with stupid kind of stereotypical crazy woman behavior, and not something I was expecting from someone who just seemed a little bit different, seemed a little bit better than the other female characters that Tyrion was previously associated with. So, yeah, they just turned her into a hysterical bitch for no reason. I didn't like that. And, this series was kind of famous for having all these females in positions of power and, being strong, independent women and whatnot. But this was the one character I really had the most interest in. I was hoping they would do more with her. The other ones, yeah, Daenerys was cool. Some of these other characters were cool. What's her face? The Stark, Sansa. She turned from a really, really stupid character in the beginning to someone who was really interesting at the end. But I really had higher hopes for Tyrion's prostitute girlfriend, whatever her name was, I don't know. And I'm not saying this to pretend to be cool, like, oh, I'm not so heavily invested in the series that I can't even remember what everyone's names are. I could have looked all of this up before making the video, but still, I just want to give you my pure opinions as cleanly as possible, and that means not researching before making this video, not trying to read anyone's commentary before making this video. Anyway, you kind of got this from a lot of other characters too, because the show had to come to a close. You had to cut off a lot of potential paths for various characters. So, for example, the Baratheon guy, the Uncle Baratheon who came back with his campaign to fight against the capital. I was expecting a lot more there. His campaign ended with a whimper. The Red Lady ended with a whimper. This is something that actually happens in real warfare, sure. But it's not interesting from a storytelling perspective. You want to have all these different powers being kind of seemingly kind of equal, or seemingly at least being able to make a difference. Here, the Baratheon house just ends with a whimper. Nothing really interesting from there. Yeah, and there were a few other characters too. So the Battle of the Bastards was the one point in this show where I really realized things were going downhill. This was the battle where Jon Snow just trying to take Winterfell back from the sadist dog guy, and here they kill off one of the Stark kids, who really didn't accomplish anything in the whole show. And yes, it's realistic that when you have a whole family of really, really interesting superstars in the this political world, when you have one kid in the family who just doesn't do anything, sure, that's realistic, right? But it's not interesting from a storytelling perspective. You want to see everyone have their own path and everyone try to accomplish anything, everyone try to build their own character. You didn't get that here. The kid just died. And I think that this was much different than the novels, but hey, who knows? Also, the whole battle just seemed a little too Hollywood for me. The whole thing where the wildlings, who were supposedly this really strong army, they get surrounded and backed into a corner, and then they get circled in with like typical battle tactics from there's a phalanx, ooh, phalanx, but then you have this army riding out of the forest at the last second. Just way too over-dramatized, way too Hollywood for me, and this is where the battles really start to seem like, okay, this is really getting out of the original source material's hands. It's getting less interesting and a lot more typical Hollywood from here on out. So yeah, I mean, that's basically what I want to say. I have a lot more minor criticisms right now, but this video's already gone long enough. Basically, yeah, I was hoping for a lot more, realized things were going downhill, and because of that, I lost a lot of my emotional investment in the series. Still quite good overall, but yeah, not as good as advertised, that's all.